Hello, my name is Gloria Frym, and I'm going to be reading from The Blind Owl by Sadek Hedayat. The Blind Owl was written in Farsi and banned in Iran and is still being banned in many places in Europe. Sadek Hedayat, his dates are 1903 to 1951, and the book was written by hand, mostly in Bangladesh, where the author decided to live while he was finishing it, and then it was mimeographed in Bangladesh in a limited edition. And just as a tiny bit of background, if you don't know the book, the speaker is ill and in an altered state of consciousness. A few days ago, she brought me a prayer book, about a half-inch of dust on it. I had no use, not only for prayer books, but for any sort of literature that expressed the notions of the rabble. What need had I of their nonsense and lies? Was I not myself the result of a long succession of past generations which had bequeathed their experience to me? Did not the past exist within me? As for mosques, the muezzins called to prayer, the ceremonial washing of the body and rinsing of the mouth, not to mention the pious practice of bobbing up and down in honor of a high and mighty being, the omnipotent Lord of all things, with whom it was impossible to have a chat except in the Arabic language. These things left me completely cold. Earlier in the days before I fell ill, I had been to the mosque a number of times, always more or less unwillingly. On these occasions I had tried to enter into a community of feeling with the people around me, but my eye would rest on the shining patterned tiles on the wall, and I would be transported into a delightful dream world. Thereby I unconsciously provided myself with a way of escape. During the prayers, I would shut my eyes and cover my face with my hand, and in this artificial night of my own making, I would recite the prayers like the meaningless sounds uttered by someone who is dreaming. The words were not spoken from the heart. I found it pleasanter to talk to a friend or acquaintance than God, the high and mighty one. God was too important a personage for me. And a little bit more from another section that is quite anti-religious. Sometimes I imagine that the visions I saw were those which appeared to everyone who was at the point of death. All anxiety, awe, fear, and will to live had subsided within me, and my renunciation of the religious beliefs which had been inculcated into me in my childhood had given me extraordinary tranquility. What comforted me was the prospect of oblivion after death. The thought of an afterlife frightened and fatigued me. I had never been able to adapt myself to the world in which I was now living. Of what use would another world be to me? I felt that this world had not been made for me, but for a tribe of brazen, money-grubbing, blustering louts, sellers of conscience, hungry of eye and heart, for people, in fact, who had been created in its own likeness, and who fawned and grovelled before the mighty of earth and heaven, as the hungry dog outside the butcher's shop wagged his tail in the hope of receiving a fragment of offal. The thought of an afterlife frightened and fatigued me. No, I had no desire to see all these loathsome worlds peopled with repulsive faces. Was God such a parvenu that he insisted on my looking over his collection of worlds?